All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. We're talking about the tax burden. You must have felt it by now, how much it's happening in your pockets. Let's see what you're saying online. There's a lot of feedback coming through here. Let's see what you're saying here on Twitter. Ndungu Wanaina. Well, financial year 2020-21 supplementary budget is completely divorced of realities of COVID-19 and its severe socio-economic impacts. It is oblivious of state of economy and desperate needs of Kenyans. Rather than adopt zero budgeting model, it is continuing with business as usual. All right. Engineer Lazaro says, we are suffering from misplaced priorities, things like imposing tax on landlords, which they normally pass to tenants, nation that heavily depends on imported goods from Kibiriti to Sindano. Okay. Honorable Tieno Ambala says Kenyans are really committed to paying tax. The KRA can't cheat the citizens that they have failed to collect the targeted Kenyan budget, having incorporated both the direct and indirect taxes, unless something fishy is going on within the administration. Nation Kimemia says we have people living below poverty, earning their meager income from the informal sector. Others earning low, moderate, or loads of money within the same sector. Make taxation simple if you want to catch the second group. You can't expect them to understand the KRA systems. Jacob Abere Matlala says tax incentive programs can't spur economy. When you give zero taxation in one side, whilst other side you increase, example, money M-Pesa transfer was from on petroleum products, it increased, knowing that they go in hand to commoners. Bramwell Wabwire says we're already in a tax burden, but still Kenyans feel that they are going to be overtaxed in the near future. Also, we are spending a lot, yet our income is low, thus leading us to more public debt. There is also mismanagement of the funds. Which one is a lesser evil, increased taxation or increased debt?
Reduce expenditure. Reduce expenditure. Because the thing is, the economy is growing, the population is growing, the economic activity is growing. So by virtue of that, there will be an increment in tax.
Yeah.
But then we need to get to a point where we're not necessarily focusing on the ceiling when it comes to the debt element, but there has to be really an element of accountability of where is this money going.
Yeah.
You know, in this particular panel discussion this morning, we've had conversations and people are saying, there's a question mark on the leakage that the country is losing on a daily basis, cumulatively for the last 5 years, and there is a correlation in one way or the other to the debt.
Yeah.
So we need to get to a point of, if we focus on tax only and debt, we forget expenditure. Where is this money going to, right? Yeah. And I also wanted to bring in another element of minimum tax, if I may, in terms of the enabling environment for businesses. When we were on the break, we were discussing this and saying, you're in a space where you start a business, you have so many tax obligations. Half of them you don't know, so you're probably being charged with penalties because no one is communicating to you. But what that tells me today is you're starting a space where you're going to be taxed, so it's in your best interest to prosper. You won't be employed, kwa sababu hakuna kazi, the opportunities are not there, largely because of COVID or the infrastructure that's not available. And thirdly, you need to pay for the government's debt incidence, so you must prosper. But then how do you prosper if you start a company today, you're being charged minimum tax, there's so many other tax obligations, it's expensive for you to actually run that business. So we are reducing the number of investable opportunities in Kenya today. We're reducing the number of companies that can come to the Nairobi Securities Exchange and attract local capital. And then we are getting a situation where people who have that surplus capital to build the economy are looking for opportunities outside of the country because it's becoming largely impossible to run a business. And what this conversation is telling me, kama uko huko nje, and I will use this word inakwanga kwa streets, kuomoka, usianzishe, don't register your company. You know, because that, it just sounds like you just go run your entrepreneurship, hustle, get from A from B. So you're not enabling a culture where you're challenging Trevor to say, Trevor, why don't you institutionalize your efforts? Why don't you institutionalize your efforts in terms of build a business and then grow that business? Because there are too many taxes that are looking at you. There are too many forces that are against you even before you jump off the ground.
Yeah, but Kazutu, you know, this minimum tax is also supposed to bring in those who have been evading taxes, because we know there are some businesses, through crafty means, they've managed to always record losses. The question that people don't ask is then, if they've been recording losses all this time, how are they still surviving then?
It's called creative accounting. Our two tax experts and the CEO of IcePark will tell you more about creative accounting. And there's an element which is legal. As long as you do it in a legal way, you can actually pay very little tax. But the main issue is not even on the few people who are not paying the taxes, but then you cannot also have a few people carrying the tax burden for the whole country. There are fundamental things that the country needs to sort out. Yeah? I'll give you an example. When Safaricom pays out dividends of 60 billion, or the banks pay out those large dividend checks and all that stuff, what they are literally just telling you is that they have not found an opportunity where that money can generate a better return than just paying it back to shareholders. And that's a very big telltale sign. So most of the time we say banks are not giving money to the private sector, but when you look at the opportunities in the country, you say, okay, this is actually a very small economy. Yeah? If we are to, instead of the 1 trillion going to the government debt, and we are to give it to the people in the economy, what is that 1 trillion going to do? Where is it actually going to go? Because we have not broadened the structure of the economy and we have not created enough demand. I'll give an example. Any multinational that comes to set up a manufacturing plant here, I'll even use Milo, for example. They came first to the big tin. It was not selling. They went to the half tin. It was not selling. They went to the small tin. They were not selling until they started doing sachets. And after that, you realize they closed the factory, move it to Egypt or move it to South Africa. Because that is the true nature of the aggregate demand that we have in this country. And the only way you can grow aggregate demand for this industry.
All right, I seem to be having a challenge with Reginald there. As soon as I'm getting back, we'll go to him. But CPM Makori, you disagree with that analogy?
To an extent, yes.
Yeah.
When you say that Safaricom should have had options with the dividends that are paid out, remember that the investors will put in money in that business. And they need to be able to get a return. For me, I look at it from a different perspective, and this is what we then we're talking about. How do we rationalize our expenditure? The biggest challenge that we have, even spurring the economic growth, is when government goes out and does what we call crowding, or pulling money out from the economy. What that simply means is that with the debt level and our budget being over what we are collecting currently, the government is bound to borrow from the economy itself, and this is through banks. Once they crowd out that money or remove that money out from the economy, you and me cannot be able to go and borrow that money to set up a business. But even if we borrow, we're going to borrow at higher interest rates that then kill the very innovative businesses that have come up to be able to address some of the societal issues. So the whole challenge is how do we rationalize and say our budget, our collection is 1.6 trillion. Why don't we have a budget that matches our collection? We are not saying no to debt. Debt should be rationalized in such a way that there is no one who can't live without debt. Singapore has done very well with debt, but you can see we can actually tell where the money went to.
It's all about accountability.
It's all about accountability.
Sorry, Trevor, I just want to come back to this statement from him and from Reginald with the element of Safaricom and some of the larger listed companies. And here's a free trip. I mean, what we do is we talk about investments, we empower people with financial knowledge and help them think through how to allocate their funding at Infallible Group. But what I'm hearing from this conversation is this. You have Safaricom. The mother and father of Safaricom is who? The government of Kenya is the largest holder alongside Vodafone and Vodacom. So you have a company, you have the mother and father who are running on a deficit. It's in the best interest that the child pays something back, you know? So when I look at it now from an investment perspective, you're going to be taxed. So one of the investment options that we are seeing, and everybody is looking at Safaricom, which is now 61% of the market capitalization on the NSE, is to say, Sawa, you tax me on one end, but I can be able to make a dividend return, at least if I put money in Safaricom, because Safaricom is now, its contribution as a dividend might not be a capital allocation strategy. It could be an element of undue influence because it has to finance a deficit that the government of Kenya is running on. And that tends now to be also the trend with the likes of KCB and other companies that the government has a stake in.
Okay. Mwema.
As we're talking here, I realize we need what I call a John 3:16, the gospel truth.
Yeah.
As a country, we're still operating in the income tax that we did in 1974, which was just 11 years post-independence, and we've worked through that for the last 46 odd years. Do we have a national tax policy as a country? And that is where we need to be a beginning point. Because with a clear national tax policy for the country, we'll not be having, today I have an idea. Today I want to introduce minimum tax. Worked. I have an idea. Let me introduce turnover tax. I have an idea. Let me introduce digital services tax. So because we do not have a clear John 3:16 in terms of a national tax policy, we then end up just patching. So we need to have a national tax policy as a country. And I think that will provide clarity. And we'll know where we need to go as a nation.
As a nation. All right.
I think it addresses one of those issues that came through from the listeners who are talking about, let's make this as simple as possible.
In fact, that's what I wanted to come to.
And one of the tax tenets is simplicity of tax. And what Mwema is alluding to, having a national tax policy will be able to talk to some of these tenets and define.
Using the agents. Because I'm thinking, as we're discussing this, people know how to interact with the M-Pesa agents. I mean, we are not talking about Safaricom and its impact, but when I go to my M-Pesa agent, sign up. So perhaps it needs to be as simplified as, una sign, jaza hapa, biashara gani umefanya leo. You know, it needs to go to that level of understanding.
And I'll come to that simplicity issue in just a bit, because Reginald was supposed to finish his point before we lost him on online. Reginald, go ahead, because you know what we have now in this jurisdiction is we operate on a self-assessment tax administration regime, which is purely based on trust. The government trusts that I say I made what I say I did, but they don't know how to, they don't have a system of verifying whether there's other incomes that I got in the process. So that's the reason why some of them may argue that they introduced the minimum tax, for example.
The government has to operate on trust, unfortunately, because it becomes then expensive. Like what I said, it does not make sense to spend 200 shillings to collect 20 shillings. And then you are better off saving your 200 and foregoing the 20. So there's also the element of the cost of administration. We cannot have then the KRA department being the largest government department, employing the most people, costing the taxpayer more than the taxes that they're actually going to collect. So we also need to keep that in mind, Trevor. And to join the conversation that people were talking about. Again, even if we have a tax policy, the only problem that I have with the Kenyan government and the Kenyan policy makers, we love treating symptoms and not going to the root of the problem. Lack of being able to collect enough tax is a symptom. And it's a symptom of what? It's a symptom of wrong fiscal policy decisions that have left us in debt. If we say we reduce the recurrent expenditure on the government, then we're creating another problem because the government has to fire people. When you fire those people, they become unemployed, and then you've created another problem. So those are the intricacies that are actually there. And the truth of the matter, Trevor, is until we cure the political problem in this country, all these tax policies, economic policies, expenditure, debt will not be solved. And when we are in the political problem, short-termism in our policymakers and in our presidency. A president knows that he only has 4 years, and there is nothing he can do in 4 years to actually turn around an economy. So he ends up doing short-term policy measures so that he looks good, so that he can be re-elected. And that's how you end up with SGR, Nairobi Expressway, Thika Road, and all those other things. Short-term fiscal policies so that the party and then we can political socialism, both the parliament and the presidency, we can have that one, but only defeating people.
Okay. You wanted to jump in, Mwan?
Yes, just a point. When you talked about the reason we are introducing minimum tax is to be able to bring everybody into the net, and talked about creative accounting and people not being able to pay taxes. That is why you've got statutes and the law, because all things, you cure them by statutes. Right now, the KRA has introduced what we're calling the voluntary tax disclosure program, which through ISPAC and myself, we really pushed the National Assembly to do that. And I think the reason why we've got these tax amnesties in place is for those people who've not paid their fair share or who've not paid the rightful share to come to the table, and it's like going to a court. I'm Catholic. It's like going to a confession box. Forgive me, Father, for I've sinned, and your pardon your sin and given your penance. In the voluntary disclosure program, you go in and declare in the first year, you declare your sins, you pay the principal tax, you're forgiven penalties and interest. Okay? And the last one we had was about 14 years ago in terms of the voluntary disclosure program. And the reason we introduced these programs over this amnesties over, ideally maybe over 10-year cycle, fact of the matter, no sane human being, in fact it's called the Westminster Principle. A rational person is meant to arrange their affairs such that they reduce what is due to the taxman. So, from time immemorial, angels and Zakayo, he who climbed the tree, the taxman has never been quite accepted into society. So people will always try and find ways to get off by not paying taxes. And that is why then you've got enforcement measures. You've got tax audit, you deploy skills. The largest shareholder in one of the telecoms is government. In that ecosystem, we've all moved to digital money. If you've moved to digital money, you're already known in the system. Here you are trading on digital money about 500,000 a year, which is maybe, if you work on it, 1,000 bob a day or 2,000 bob a day on this digital platform, then you file nil returns. Why are we not biting the bullet and applying technology and laws? Because we have an interest in this entity, determine that and increase the tax rate. That overnight, increase the numbers.
All right. There's a tweet that was sent in by one of the viewers. Let's bring it up on issues of making this system more simple. Was it Nation, I believe? Yes, it was Nation Kimemia, who says we have people living below poverty, earning their meager income from the informal sector, others earning low, moderate, or loads of money within the same sector. Make taxation simple if you want to catch the second group. You can't expect them to understand the KRA systems. And Makori, this is what you tried to address. I believe, was it on Monday? You were one of the leading trends on an initiative, what was called Izisha.
Yes.
What was that about?
Izisha was all about being able to help the taxpayers file their tax returns. If you looked at over the years, 2019, to be precise, 1.58 million Kenyans filed their taxes against 3.8 million taxpayers who should have filed their returns. last year, only 1.53 million Kenyans out of the same target of 3.8 million filed their taxes.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is just be able to tell them, look, we have professionals who can be able to do that. All they need to do is submit their tax returns that they have, their tax files, and a professional will actually be able to do that for them.
Yeah.
In essence, what it also means is that in case there are any errors in that filing of the return, the person being held responsible is not the taxpayer. It is the person who has filed the returns. And the law is very clear on what penalties will be pegged on the person who has filed those tax returns.
Yeah.
So in essence, what you're also trying to do is enhance compliance and revenue enhancement for the government and KRA by being able to bring more people to declare their taxes at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So the whole initiative is just be able to ask Kenyans, you don't have to struggle to file your tax returns. We have the professionals who can be able to do that.
Yeah.
Simply go to www.izisha.co.ke, put in your registration.
Yeah.
We'll contact you and we'll have you file your tax returns without having to hustle. Somebody else will hustle it for you and is also taking responsibility on their behalf.
So usually what I know most people do, and I have tried to file this myself on the KRA system, but I get a margin of error of 0.00001 or something. It is unnecessarily complex. Are you saying then that on the other side I'll be getting accountants who are certified as opposed to the people who do it for me because I just go to the cyber and pay someone? People who've learned how to work around it.
Exactly. You know, the difference between a cyber and a certified person, once you file with a cyber, you still are held liable. When you file the wrong returns, you still be held liable. But with a certified professional, the certified professional takes responsibility on your behalf. And what that means is that they have to be able to be very keen and ensure that they are filing the right thing. So you bring in your P9s, your VAT returns that you've made over the period, and the professional will actually be able to look through and even advise you. So it's not just filing the returns. They'll be able to give you the best advice in terms of tax matters and help you as a taxpayer.
But isn't this the kind of system that you're talking about, initiatives that will then help people interact much more easily with these systems?
I'm already sold. I'm just going to follow him after. Because head of season. So me and Makori were like, this is where I'm at. But certainly I applaud this effort because there tends to be that issue of perhaps you have pending issues from the previous season or whatever is happening to your business, especially starting a business. So this is the kind of support that we are talking about. And certainly congratulations to you and your team. I will be looking out for that. And I think it's the element of just addressing, do your part and make your contribution, but I will keep coming back like a broken telephone. The same way that you and I are striving to do our best to contribute, to make our annual contributions, to make our annual tax filing, then there also needs to be a similar spirit within the government, within the exchequer, where you're also getting the sense that, fine, you cannot undo the decisions of the past. You cannot undo the people that you're paying a pension to. You cannot undo the thousands of people who are hired by the Teacher Service Commission, the police officers. You cannot undo that. But there needs to be an element of saying, can we enhance the productivity from these people? Can we reevaluate what we are getting from them and giving to the people of Kenya? So that you don't get to a situation where in 5 years, people are like, this system, by the way, wacha tukutane huko nje. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing, there needs to be an element of a review of this whole debt and element. Because if I'm coming with humility na nyenyekea kwa hii system, ndio ni file, justaki kupatikana nje, even the people who are signing off on this debt and all these things, pia wanyenyekee, waseme nyewe, hapa tumekuwa tukiangusha ball. What can we do? Wale tuko na pesa yao, can we talk to them? Because somebody asked in one of your questions, they said, I don't understand the conversation. I know a tax conversation is hard. Allow me to just simplify it. Yani, government kwenye iko saa hii, ni kusema wanaweza kuraise 140 shillings, si ndio? Lakini wanako na expenditure ya 300. So wewe na mimi ndio sponsor wa hiyo
Your deficit.
Your deficit. Hiyo 160, hiyo 160
Yeah.
ni mimi na wewe ni sponsor.
Tutatua.
Ile shida inakuja ni mimi nimeidentifyiwa kama sponsor lakini sina. Give it haiko. You know.
designated
So
sponsor
mimi
was
as the Kenyan, I am the designated sponsor lakini sina hiyo uwezo.
Yeah.
So there has to be that. Sasa hii conversation yote ya tax tunasema hiyo 140 lazima wewe utakamuliwa ifike 300.
Yeah.
Juu hiyo 300 hairudi. So tunasema ni sawa tu, wacha tuendelee kukamuliwa because labda hivyo ndio iko.
Yeah.
But tunasema na tunaomba. Even it's like say tunaomba serikali. Please, hii 300. Angalau wacha isiende 400. Wacha
Okay.
ukiweza rudisha
Ishikilie
250.
hapo.
Sponsor hana uwezo.
Remember, you know, the easing of the systems, like the Izisha platform now. When Makori says more than 1.35 million people filed their taxes out of about 3 point something, it means that the two could not simply do it.
Well, it's complex.
Yeah.
The thing is, filing a tax return is complex and punitive. And with that complexity,
Yeah.
then people are not able to do it.
Yeah.
What I like about Izisha, it made tax compliance easy and simple. And I must commend the Institute for playing their role as a certified public Institute of Accountants, the public role.
Yeah.
I think by making it simple and easy
Yeah.
for Kenyans to comply, my prediction is we'll see an increase
Yeah.
in my guesstimation, easily 100 to 100,000 new taxpayers getting into the system, so in filing their taxes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing, simplifying and making filing those returns is so. Izisha, I think, is the way to go.
All right.
And at the back of it, you have a professional, i.e. an accountant, looking sure that they cross the T's and dot the I's.
Who's certified and doesn't necessarily, not a quack like maybe the ones I use in
Absolutely.
the
And Trevor, creating employment for the numerous accountants when the institution, so you absolutely must commend that.
Okay. Let's bring in Reginald on this and to get your final remarks on this issue because we are now closing. Where do we go from here, Reginald? What is the best way forward?
I think my parting shot, Trevor, is I'll borrow it from a bit statement. Serikali's idea. There's nothing free that comes from the government. So whenever we cry to the government, just know your tax will go up to help you. The government does not grow money on trees. So whenever we ask the government for help, or the government should do this, change this, increase this, do that, just know that they will come to the sponsor to get money to do all those things.
Okay. Mwema, closing remarks.
My closing remarks is, if you look at the higher net worth individuals, they have not come to the table with a bottle of champagne or with a bottle of wine. If we look at Wilson, and the number of choppers that are in Wilson, those are high net worth individuals. Mbogi yao iko juu. I think for me would be, let them take advantage of the voluntary disclosure program. We only have this Kenya to build. Come to the table with your bottle of champagne. And that way, we'll stop focusing on my hustlers na mashinani at the bottom of the pyramid. Let the top come to the table.
Okay. Be there.
I just had champagne, then we were talking about sponsors. So for a minute there, I was what's going on? I'll take a different tangent in this. I know the conversation and the discourse this morning is focusing on the tax burden. So we can sit here till the chicken come to roost and talk about it, and we won't get our heads around it. You need to take it to a personal level. As an individual, as Trevor, as Mbithe, as Mwema, as Mr. Mwema, as Mr. Makori, as Mr. Reginald Katsutu, where are you at? Because what this means, from an economic standpoint, is first and foremost, your tax will increase. VAT has gone up to 16%. If you go to the shop today, the increment is over 20% if you're buying things. if you're going to start consuming things that are not necessary, it's going to be more expensive. So for the next 2 years, you're going to pay higher taxes, whether you are employed or running a business, or if you are consuming. So be careful about your expenditure. Don't go on a rampart, because the next 2 years are going to be a bit tight. And then I'd say now the second question you want to ask yourself, well, when is sponsor? And it is important and it is in your best interest for you to prosper as a sponsor, because the government will keep coming back to you. So instead of sasa kushinda ukilia, learn how to enhance your revenue generation. And I like the fact that we are using Ezesha now to be able to allow us to use the digital platform to file our taxes. It tells us that the same government has made a huge investment on technology. There's a huge investment in that space. You and I are on our phones. So in as much as we are talking about the tax burden, ask yourself, can I actually challenge myself to increase my footprint in terms of revenue generation? So therefore, I'm able to contribute to that tax element. Am I able to reduce on my consumption? And finally, am I then able to put money aside to invest? I know we talk about debt. So we can either keep saying that the debt ceiling is too high, or you can say, aha, serikali needs cash. The interest rate, the yield curve, it's going up. So rather than complaining, tutakuwa nakaa na ngoja infrastructure board, nasaidia serikali, tunasaidiana, at least I get a 10 to 12% return. That's where I'd like to end it.
All right, Makori, and I'd like you to talk about the Ezesha platform more, because I'm more interested in that in terms of then my data. What happens once I upload my P9 form? Am I assured that it's not going to go to anybody else who will expose it out there? Is it open to organizations, or is it just individuals?
Thank you, Trevor. Maybe just before I talk about Ezesha, is just to be able to say the government has a lot and KRA has a lot to be able to bridge the trust deficit in this country, so that we're able to see where our taxes are going. To the Ezesha platform is just to be able to tell the public that accountants have held information for many years and in confidence. So even this time when you're giving out your P9, you're giving it to one person called a certified public accountant. If that breach happens, there are disciplinary measures that are actually taken up on those who do that, which is very rare. Most of this time, most of organizations have accountants, and you've never had information leak on financials anywhere. So it's the same thing that you're guaranteeing that that information that is going to be given is going to be held with utmost confidentiality. The beauty about this is that it's not just limited to individuals, it's also to companies, to partnerships, to SMEs, to Juakali guys if they want to be able to file their tax returns. This is open. The Ezesha platform is open to them. They'll get a certified professional who will be able to file their taxes on their behalf and also be responsible for their taxes, because now it removes the burden from them and takes it to the certified professional who will then be held accountable by KRA if at any given point there's going to be a filing of the wrong returns. Unlike the cyber caves where people file their returns, you can't go back to a cyber cave and say, why did you file the wrong returns for me? But with certified professionals, KRA comes to you, say, so-and-so did it for me, KRA will deal with that person.
All right, that's where we leave it for now. I see there's still a lot of feedback coming through. Let me squeeze in like 3 of them really quick before we finish having them come through. Naashen Kimemia says manufacturers are fleeing Kenya because of high taxes, energy costs, and fake goods. Number 2, starting as SMEs is too burdensome. You have to play cat and mouse with government until you can pay taxes. Gikomba traders and Kenyan farmers are losing to foreigners because of high taxation. All right. Dennis Oda says, I'm a happy man today that at least we are talking numbers from professionals and not politicians who try to coin the numbers to suit their narrative. Let's check the leakage and tax everyone making money to reduce overtaxing on a few individuals. Governor The Dreamer says SMEs should be levied lower amounts of taxes so that they will have enough funds for other activities that will lead to business growth and profitability. Additionally, it will help SMEs get better equipped to survive in a competitive market. That's where we leave it for now. And to thank my guests this morning, Reginald Kadzutu, economist with Amana Capital, CPA Edwin Makori, CEO ISPAC, Institute of Certified Public Accountants. By the way, we can now file our returns through them and blame them in case of something, which is awesome because, well, the deadline is coming up in June. That's through the Izisha platform. You said it's www.izisha.co.ke. All right, brilliant. And we also have FCPA Philip Mwema, Managing Partner, Anderson Tax. Thank you so much for making time. And be the Mwema economist and CEO in Fallible Group. The Mwemas have no relation, no?
Absolutely. But a good coincidence.
Coming up next is Workout Wednesday. I will not be working out as usual, but Willis is here. See you in a bit.